Is this supposed to be some kind of joke? Officer Megan Carter sneered as she swung open the cruiser door and stepped onto the pavement. Her mirrored sunglasses flashed in the sunlight, a smirk tugging at her lips. Calvin Brooks, a black man, 81 years old, sat calmly astride his motorcycle. His weathered hands gripped the handlebars with steady strength, his gaze fixed straight ahead on the open road. Brooks didn't flinch, didn't shift. Years of discipline held him still. Megan exchanged an impatient glance with Officer Ryan Keller, who had just stepped out beside her. License and registration, and get off the bike! Now! Her voice carried authority, one hand resting lightly but deliberately on her holstered sidearm. What Megan and Ryan had no idea of was this. Within minutes, a convoy of 30 soldiers in Humvees would thunder into Riverton, led by a captain who would stop at nothing to protect the man they had just pulled over. But for now, Calvin Brooks remained motionless. Calvin Brooks lived by discipline. For decades, he rose at 5 a.m., tending his farm just outside Riverton. The day before, his John Deere tractor had failed, but fixing machines was second nature to him. In his garage rested a 1970 Harley-Davidson shovelhead. Rust covered its frame, but its engine still thundered. At 81, Calvin rode with sharper reflexes than most men in their 20s, though to strangers he was only an old black man on an old bike. At Riverton's entrance, the light turned red. Brooks eased to a stop near the gas station he always used. The Harley rumbled steady until red and blue lights flashed in his mirror. Megan Carter approached, her boots striking the asphalt with force. "Sir, shut that piece of junk off." Calvin Brooks stayed seated. His weathered fingers gripped the handlebars while his calm eyes refused to leave the distant horizon. Megan Carter's tone hardened, her voice cutting like glass. "License and registration, and step off the motorcycle! Now!" Her right hand pressed casually against the butt of her weapon, a silent reminder of control. Without a word, Calvin Brooks reached into his jacket and drew out a worn brown leather wallet. Inside, every document was in perfect order, neatly folded, the kind of precision that reflected his life. He handed them over without hurry. Megan scanned the license, her brows arching. 81 years old? Her lips curled into disbelief. "Don't you think you're too old to be riding around on this thing?" Officer Ryan Keller strolled up, a grin playing across his face as he studied the Harley. "Man, this bike's ancient, older than my dad. Look at all that rust." "Hands on the bike, sir. Feet apart," Megan ordered coldly. The search was unnecessary. Both of them knew it. Still, they went through the motions, patting down an old black man on a motorcycle in plain view of the public. It didn't take long for people to notice. A small crowd gathered at the gas station and along the sidewalk. Voices started to ripple. "Mr. Brooks, where do you live?" Megan asked, suspicion threading her tone. "On a farm, Route 27, Calvin answered simply. "Alone?" Megan exchanged a look with Ryan, a silent assumption passing between them. Just another old man out here by himself. "Do you have family? Someone who checks in on you?" Calvin Brooks lifted his chin slightly. "I've taken care of myself for 81 years, Megan pressed on. "But don't you think it's risky? Riding this motorcycle at your age, you could cause an accident. Someone could get hurt." Calvin stood calmly beside the Harley, his back straight, eyes never leaving the horizon. "Sir, I'm speaking to you." Megan pushed, her irritation showing. "I'm listening," Calvin replied softly. "Then answer me. Don't you think it's irresponsible?" Ryan leaned closer, muttering under his breath. "I think he's half deaf. Look at him, barely reacting. Have you ever seen someone get judged unfairly just because of their age or the way they look? What would you do if you were standing in that crowd watching this unfold? Before we go further, what city or country are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments. We love seeing where our viewers are tuning in from. And if you believe respect should never be denied to our elders, smash that like button and subscribe to Story Arc, because dignity has no expiration date. The crowd's whispers grew louder. "Don't these cops have better things to do?" "He looks confused." Poor man. Sympathy and judgment split the gathering in two. Calvin Brooks closed his eyes, inhaled deeply. He'd faced worse than this before. But today, humiliation replaced bullets and battlefields. At the gas station, Derek Coleman froze, rag in hand. A Gulf War veteran, he had known Calvin Brooks for years, always polite, always steady. Now seeing the 81-year-old black man humiliated on the roadside, Derek's blood boiled. Derek snatched up the phone and dialed the nearby military base at Fort Hamilton. "Hello, this is Derek Coleman. I need to speak with an officer on duty. Urgent matter," Derek said sharply. Back on the roadside, Megan Carter's patience snapped. Her voice rose above the murmurs of the crowd. "Mr. Brooks, you'll have to come with us to the station." Calvin Brooks turned his head slightly, his voice calm and even. "And for what reason?" Megan didn't blink. "For inappropriate behavior and failure to properly respond to law enforcement." She paused, then added, "And you'll need a medical evaluation before you even think of riding that motorcycle again." Calvin didn't argue. He didn't need to. His silence was heavier than words. Ryan lifted a hand. "Let me try." He stepped closer. "Mr. Brooks, you understand our concern, right? A man your age riding a bike like that, it could be dangerous." Calvin Brooks's reply was direct. "Dangerous for who? For me? For other drivers? I've been riding for 64 years, never caused an accident." Ryan frowned. "Yeah, but things change. Slower reflexes, vision not as sharp." Calvin could have explained. He could have mentioned the medical exam he passed just 6 months ago, the daily exercise routine that kept his reflexes sharper than most men decades younger, the iron discipline that still governed every part of his life. But he said nothing. Proof wasn't owed to anyone. Meanwhile, Derek's voice carried over the phone. "We've got a veteran here being disrespected by local cops. Calvin Brooks. I've known him for 15 years. Honest man, never caused trouble, and now he's being humiliated in public." The officer on the other end of the line fell silent for a second. Then his tone sharpened. "Did you say Calvin Brooks? Hold one moment." Seconds later, the officer's voice returned, urgent and precise. "Mr. Coleman, keep your eyes on the situation. Do not let them lay a hand on Colonel Brooks until we arrive. We're dispatching a unit now." Derek's grip tightened on the phone. "Colonel?" Brooks had never once spoken of rank. Back on the roadside, Megan Carter was reaching her limit. Her voice cut sharp as she barked. "Mr. Brooks, you're going to the hospital for an evaluation, right now!" Calvin Brooks stood tall, his voice steady as stone. "I'm not going." Megan blinked in disbelief. "What do you mean you're not going? This isn't a request, it's an order." Calvin tilted his head slightly. "Based on what law?" Her mouth opened, then froze. There was no statute that allowed detaining an elderly black man for simply riding a motorcycle, no rule that demanded a psychiatric exam without cause. But now, too many eyes were watching. Cell phones were pointed. To back down would mean admitting she had misjudged from the start. Megan grasped for footing. Elder protection law. Behavior that puts your own safety at risk. Calvin Brooks's lips curled into the faintest smile. It was small, nearly invisible, but unmistakable. The smile of a man who had heard far better lies from far more dangerous adversaries. He lifted his chin. "Officer Carter, may I ask you a question?" Her jaw tightened. "Mr. Brooks, get in the vehicle now." "I'm not going." Her voice rose. "Then I'll have to use force." Across the street, Derek Coleman felt something shift inside him. The admiration he had for Calvin Brooks swelled. Whoever Brooks truly was, his courage was undeniable. The crowd's tension thickened. People leaned forward, phones steady, waiting. They knew something was about to break. And they were right. The sound came first, deep, rolling, unmistakable. Engines, heavy ones. Dust rose on the horizon as 12 Humvees roared down the road in formation. The convoy screeched to a halt in a semicircle around the scene, engines still rumbling. Doors swung open, boots hit asphalt in unison. 30 soldiers stepped out, surrounding the area with practiced precision. From the lead vehicle, a commanding figure emerged. Captain Thomas Grayson, 54 years old, 21 years in uniform. He strode forward, straight past Megan Carter and Ryan Keller, eyes locked only on Calvin Brooks. Grayson stopped 3 meters away, heels clicking together. He snapped a crisp salute. "Colonel Brooks!" The word detonated like a grenade. Megan Carter and Ryan Keller froze, eyes wide, panic flickering across their faces. Captain Thomas Grayson's salute cut the air like steel. The title, Colonel Brooks, hung heavy in the silence, shattering the authority Megan Carter thought she had. Grayson's voice carried across the semicircle of soldiers. "Sir, we were told there was some kind of misunderstanding here." Only then did Grayson turn his eyes toward the local officers. His gaze sliced like a blade. "Who had the audacity to stop Colonel Brooks?" Megan Carter scrambled for composure. Officer Carter, local police. We stopped this gentleman because... This gentleman? Grayson's voice thundered, rising a notch. At once, 30 soldiers moved forward a synchronized step, their boots striking the pavement as one. The crowd gasped. The message was unmistakable. Every man and woman there stood with their commander. Megan's throat tightened. Captain, I didn't know he was military. Grayson cut her off, his voice sharp enough to draw blood. This man served 3 tours in Vietnam. He ran intelligence operations in the Gulf and Afghanistan. He trained hundreds of U.S. Army officers, myself included, and you dare stop him? Ryan Keller lifted his palms, trying to defuse. We were just doing our job. Grayson's stare pinned him in place. Your job is to protect and serve, not humiliate an old black man in public. The weight of his words flipped the entire crowd. The whispers had changed. Poor guy, that was awful. That officer went too far. He's a war hero. The realization rippled outward. Megan Carter stepped closer to Calvin Brooks, her voice breaking. Sir, Colonel Brooks, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Calvin Brooks met her eyes calmly. His voice was quiet but firm, carrying a weight that silenced everyone. Officer Carter, may I give you one piece of advice? She swallowed. Yes, sir. Never judge someone by their appearance. You have no idea what battles they've fought or what scars they carry. The words cut deeper than any reprimand. The lesson wasn't just for Carter, it was for everyone watching, everyone recording. Captain Grayson turned to Calvin Brooks. Colonel, is there anything you need? An escort? Transportation? Calvin Brooks shook his head gently. No, Captain, but thank you for coming. Grayson's voice steadied. Sir, we'll always be here. Always. Calvin Brooks walked back to his Harley, swung a leg over, and turned the key. The Harley roared back to life. 30 soldiers stood in formation, parting into a quarter of honor as Calvin Brooks rode away into the distance. An hour later, at the local police station, the weight of what had happened was already circling the town like wildfire. Sheriff Walter Briggs, 51 years old with 15 years in office, picked up the ringing phone. The voice on the other end was firm, precise. Sheriff Briggs, Captain Thomas Grayson, Fort Hamilton. We need to discuss this morning's incident. Briggs leaned back in his chair, the tone already telling him this was serious. Captain, I'm aware. I've spoken with Officers Carter and Keller. Grayson's reply was sharp. And what will the procedure be? Briggs hesitated. He knew Megan Carter well, 5 years on his team. Dedicated, reliable. Not a bad officer, just one who had made a judgment call that spiraled out of control. Captain, let me be frank. My officers made a mistake. A serious lapse in judgment, yes, but not a crime. Grayson didn't soften. Sheriff, let me be clear. Colonel Brooks doesn't seek revenge. He isn't suing anyone. He doesn't want careers destroyed, but we as a military institution cannot allow our veterans to be treated this way. Not Colonel Brooks, not anyone who gave their life to service. Briggs felt the weight behind the words. This wasn't just about one stop on the roadside anymore. There were political implications, institutional consequences, and national eyes that would follow. What do you suggest? Briggs asked carefully. Grayson's answer came without pause. A training program. Your officers will work directly with us. They'll come to Fort Hamilton, see what true service looks like, learn respect the right way. Briggs nodded, resigned. It'll be done, Captain. If you believe our elders and veterans deserve unwavering respect, hit that like button and subscribe to Story Arc, because honoring those who've given their lives to service is a lesson we all need to learn.